Well, it's certainly because of the logistics of it. One that took a little bit of time. Ron Hextall and Don Maloney, who's the general manager of the Arizona Coyotes, have been working on it for quite a while. It's kind of brilliant, borderline cap circumvention, depending on who you ask, because of the way that the NHL works as it relates to the salary cap. So Chris Pronger's salary cap hit is $4.91 million, but he's only owed about $500,000 in actual real salary money. So for a low-market team like Arizona that needs to get to the cap floor, and the Flyers, who are perpetually squeezed against the cap ceiling, it makes sense for both teams here. Arizona basically gets credit for spending $4.9 million when they've really only spent $500,000.
So in the end, the Flyers, to get a taker for Chris Pronger, I guess this is a move that Flyers fans have to be thrilled with.
Yeah, in reality, once the season started, if the Flyers were still pinned up against the cap, they could have put Pronger's money on long-term injured reserve and gotten $4.9 million in relief. But this does alleviate some cap room for them, and like Ron Hextall said the other day, they're not really done yet. This gets them a little bit of a cushion, but they're still kind of up there, and they're at $6.4 million under the cap right now. But the way Ron Hextall looks at it, he's looking at what the number he thinks it will be after he plugs a couple holes, being Michael Del Zotto and the backup goaltender. So to him, he's not really seeing $6.4 million under, even though that's what the Flyers are actually looking at right now.
Dave Isaac's with us. Flyers make a trade this weekend. Nick Grossman and the contract of Chris Pronger out. Sam Gagner in. What are the intentions for Sam? Do you anticipate him being here?
That one seems to be up in the air right now. And again, that's a cap thing because the Flyers are responsible for $3.3 million of his cap hit of the $5 million that he's owed. And this is where it gets really hairy because the Tampa Bay Lightning, who he never actually played a game for, are on the hook for this too. So they have some responsibility as it relates to the cap hit. And if the Flyers do buy him out, the Lightning are responsible for paying part of that too. And if Hextall decides to buy him out, there's nothing that Tampa Bay Lightning general manager Steve Yzerman can really do about it. The thing with Gagner is $3.3 million for a guy who's got a ton of skill but hasn't really put it together. I think you have to take into account there that even though he's been in the league for 8 years, all 8 years he's been on dreadfully awful teams. 7 years in Edmonton is something that you wouldn't wish upon your worst enemy prior to Connor McDavid being drafted there. And then Arizona was, pretty much openly tanking last year. So he's really never played on a very good team. Talking to him yesterday, he says that he's as motivated as a person could get. And he's kind of waiting in the wind right now. The Flyers have until noon tomorrow to decide if they are indeed going to buy him out. The deadline for the buyout is 5 o'clock, but they would have to put him on waivers at noon if they were going to do that. So the collective bargaining agreement in the NHL, it's like learning another language.
Dave.
And I'm certainly not fluent in it.
Do you think that he is a good fit if they kept him, or is he a guy that, obviously he's a center. That's a position that they're pretty deep at anyway. So is he a guy that really they need to kind of hang around, or would it be a disappointment if he ended up getting bought out?
Yeah, he is a center, but he said yesterday that he's played both wings. If I'm Ron Hextall, this isn't a very deep free agent class, and that starts on Wednesday. I would keep him. I would keep Sam Gagner. Try him out on the first line at the left wing with Claude Giroux and Jake Voracek. See what happens. $3.3 million in this world, it's not a really big chunk of change. And the Flyers, are $6.4 million under with his $3.3 million. If they buy him out, it only costs them $633,000 this year, $833,000 next year. They'd be closer to $9 million under, which that makes your eyes light up a little bit. Oh, they're close to double digit agency, but there's really not enough out there, I think, to take a flyer on anybody else. I would keep him.
Right. So in other words, he is a better addition to what you might be able to add with the savings in free agency.
Exactly, because, things get really loony on July 1st. I mean, the amount of money that general managers spend, you scratch your head going, really? So 3.3, if he's a guy that you think might be able to be there on the top line, why not? That's really not going to be all that much when you look at some of the crazy numbers that are going to be spent on Wednesday. Even with a poor free agent class, people will spend crazy money.
Yeah, let's take a look at that real fast, Dave. Wednesday free agency starts. Is there a couple of guys that you believe the Flyers should and will target?
Well, to me, I would keep Gagne. If they don't do that, the guy that I would look at is Michael Frolik. He was a winger. He played right wing with the Winnipeg Jets, but he's a Czech guy that's gotten along really well with countryman Jake Voracek. He's a couple years older. I believe he's 27 years old. But, he's a guy, somebody will pay him, I think. And reportedly he's looking for about $4 million a year. The Flyers could afford that if they keep the backup goalie fairly cheap. And they're going to be kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel there because of all the movement that's been happening in the last few days with goaltenders in the National Hockey League. But I would say Frolik is probably the top option. Justin Williams, he's a guy that I wrote about a couple months ago that might be, a little bit cheaper at the tail end of his career. He's won 3 cups, and now he's, probably looking to kind of not necessarily ease through the rest of his career, but looking for a comfortable situation, and the Flyers certainly would provide that for him. A team that he's known. His wife is from Delaware County. So, those are the 2 top names in my eyes. As for, the next thing after that would be backup goalies, and that's just, kind of a crapshoot right now.
Dave, let me get your thoughts on Del Zotto. I mean, obviously, he's a guy that they'd like to bring back. They did trade Grossman. They got a lot of defenders back here. Do you anticipate them getting him here?
Keeping Del Zotto?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's been a priority of Ron Hextall's. He's I don't want to say changed his tune, but there were times right after the season where he said, "Oh yeah, don't worry about Del Zotto. That'll be easy." It's not looking so easy right now. And, he said he wouldn't classify it as particularly tough, but this isn't going to be just the situation where you have a restricted free agent, you offer him a qualifying offer, you extend a qualifying offer rather, and he's just going to take it. I think he showed last year that was a huge, reestablishment to the NHL for Michael Del Zotto, where he actually kind of needs to get paid a little bit, and he got $1.3 million, I believe, from the Flyers last year. He might want a little bit of term as well, and that's something where the Flyers probably aren't as comfortable because you saw them take Ivan Provorov, and they've got a couple of those prospects on the way up as well. They can't really afford to sign Del Zotto for 5 years or something like that.
Dave, the draft was this weekend, and a lot of players, a lot of fans, casual fans especially, don't know a whole heck of a lot about the draft. Give us a little overview and, give us your thoughts on how they did. I obviously hearing a lot of positive reaction to what they did in the draft.
Yeah, well, the one thing that we have the little breaking news sound. It sounds like the Flyers have sent Zach Ronaldo to the Boston Bruins for a 3rd-round pick. So, that'll open up a roster spot for them, too, and that's not a whole lot of money on their books. But you asked me about the draft, and, they did really well at where they picked, it would appear. Travis Konechny is who they took at 24. The Flyers had him way higher on their draft board. They were pretty surprised that he was still available at 24. Ivan Provorov was the guy that they wanted all along, and I think they got a little bit lucky that he fell to them at number 7. Columbus was talking with the Devils about pick number 6, and I really believe that's who they were going to take if they were able to pull that deal off, but they weren't. So,
Dave, I've heard people say that he might be able to play right away. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. I believe he'll start the year there. I really do. It wouldn't surprise me if they put him with Evgeny Medvedev, the Russian that they signed. I mean, Provorov actually he speaks English fluently. Medvedev doesn't speak a lick of English, but you kind of assume that there might be some kind of camaraderie there because of the 2 countrymen. But I really do. I think he's a guy that's able to make the team, and I think he will make the team right out of the gate. At the very least, I think they'll give him that 8-game, 9-game tryout They can still send him to juniors if they decide, you know what, he might not be ready for this.
What about some of the other younger players that they have? Obviously, Lawton's a guy. We know they have a lot of defenders there. Will any of the Flyers prospects get some NHL time this year?
I don't know. Not really the offensive guys, I don't think. I guess it's possible, but right now I don't really see that happening. I think you look at defense, and you kind of thought that maybe one of the younger guys would have stepped up, but I think that spot's kind of taken if Provorov makes the team, and you won't see a Shane Gostisbehere or a Sammy Morin here. I actually think both of those guys will end up in Lehigh Valley because the Flyers want to grow those two together.
Dave Isaac's with us here, taking a look at the Flyers, and obviously the draft this past weekend, they made that trade, and obviously another talk was Voracek. His deal, are they going to be able to lock him up? Is that another priority for them to lock him up long term?
Yeah, it absolutely is a priority, but because of the language in the CBA, they can't do that until Wednesday. They can't sign him. I mean, they may have started talking, but they can't actually do that until Wednesday. But I know that that's something that Ron Hextall would like to do this summer, and I'm sure that Voracek doesn't want that kind of hanging over his head all season long.
All right, Wednesday it all starts, the draft, and then, of course, free agency for the NHL. We'll see. Ron Hextall able to wiggle some cap space here. We'll see if he's got another move up his sleeve, as Dave just told us, Zach Rinaldo to Boston as well. So he's trying to get some things done. We'll see that all unfold starting on Wednesday. At Dave G. Isaac for more on the Fly Guys. Thanks, bud.
Thank you.